You spent $250 on a rod and reel combo, rigged it up, drove an hour to the lake, and came home with almost nothing. Meanwhile, the guy 2 docks down had a setup that probably cost half as much, and he was putting fish in the cooler all morning. That is a frustrating situation, but the rod was not the problem. The mistake happened before you ever left the store. And if you do not figure out what that mistake was, you will keep making it. Because the fishing industry is extremely good at getting anglers to spend more money without actually helping them catch more fish. Hit subscribe before we get into it, because this channel is built around honest gear advice, not product placements and paid promotions. I'm Jerry Davis, and I've spent enough time around boats, tackle shops, and fishing gear to know when anglers are paying for performance and when they're paying for a logo and a feeling. Premium fishing gear is real. Some of it is genuinely worth the price. But there are 9 specific buying mistakes that turn premium gear into an expensive disappointment. And most anglers make at least 2 or 3 of them without even knowing it. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly what those mistakes are, why they happen, and what to change so that the money you spend actually improves your time on the water. Let's get into it. The first mistake is buying premium gear before you understand your technique well enough to feel the difference. This is the one nobody wants to hear, but it matters more than anything else on this list. A high modulus graphite rod is built to transmit subtle vibrations, communicate soft bites, and respond to precise rod movements. That sensitivity is a real advantage for an angler who has developed the feel and discipline to use it. For a beginner or even an intermediate angler who has not yet built up the muscle memory and tactile awareness that comes from hours on the water, a lot of that sensitivity is invisible. You cannot feel a difference you have never learned to recognize. Premium gear amplifies what you already know. It does not teach you what you do not. If you are still figuring out the basics of a drop shot or a finesse jig, a $60 or $70 rod will serve you just as well while you develop the skill that eventually makes a high-end blank meaningful. Mistake number 2 is mismatching the gear to the technique. This one drives me nuts, and it happens constantly. An angler reads about the latest high-end casting rod built for fast presentations and reaction baits, buys it, and then spends half the season throwing a Texas-rigged worm into heavy cover with it. A fast-action rod built for topwater lures and moving baits is not the right tool for slow, feel-based presentations in thick vegetation. It is not designed for it. The action, the taper, the power rating, and the blank materials are all optimized for something else. Premium gear is premium within the context it was designed for. Take it outside that context, and you are fighting the rod instead of fishing with it. Before you spend on anything above the mid-range, ask yourself what technique you actually fish most, not what technique looks the coolest in the video you just watched. Mistake number 3 is pairing a premium rod with a reel that does not belong with it. This one costs anglers a lot of performance, and they rarely connect the two. A high-end rod, built for light line finesse fishing, paired with a reel that has a rough, inconsistent drag, is a bad combination. You will lose fish. The rod does its job, the reel fails under pressure, and you blame the situation instead of the setup. Gear balance also matters in ways that are easy to underestimate. A heavy reel on a light rod changes the swing weight and the fatigue you feel after a full day of casting. A mismatch in gear ratio can make a technique awkward or impossible to fish correctly. If you are going to spend serious money on one component, the other component needs to be capable of working with it. The reel and rod are a system. Evaluate them together, not separately. Mistake number 4 is spooling premium line on a reel that cannot handle it properly. Expensive fluorocarbon, high-end braid, premium monofilament. These lines have real advantages in the right situations. Fluorocarbon's low visibility and abrasion resistance make a genuine difference in clear water or around rocky structure. High-quality braids, sensitivity, and casting distance are legitimate benefits for certain presentations. But when you spool premium line onto a reel with a cheap, uneven spool lip, a rough line roller, or a poorly designed bail, you are setting yourself up for problems. The line roller is one of the most important and most overlooked components on a spinning reel. A rough or poorly aligned line roller creates line twist far faster than almost anything else. If you are getting frustrating coils and knots after a few trips, and you are blaming the line, look at the reel first. Premium line on a reel that creates constant twist is not better than average line on a reel that handles it cleanly. Mistake number 5 is ignoring hook quality on premium lures. Here is what most anglers overlook. You spend $20 or $25 on a quality swim bait or a realistic hard bait that runs perfectly. The paint job is detailed. The action in the water is exactly what the manufacturer promised. Then you take it out of the package and never look at the hooks. Stock hooks on mid-range and even some higher-end lures vary widely in quality. Some are excellent. Some are soft, dull, or sized in a way that affects the lure's action and your hookup ratio. A soft hook that bends under pressure, or a hook that cannot hold a point after one contact with a rock or dock piling, turns that premium lure into a fish you almost caught. Quality terminal tackle is not glamorous, but swapping cheap factory hooks for a reliable aftermarket option is often a better investment than the next expensive lure sitting on the rack. Mistake number 6 is buying premium gear designed for conditions you do not actually fish. This happens with saltwater-rated equipment more than almost anything else. An angler who fishes freshwater bass and panfish a few times a month sees a high-end reel marketed for inshore saltwater use. The engineering is impressive. The materials are high-grade. The corrosion resistance is built for a demanding environment. But if your fishing is a calm reservoir or a small river with no salt exposure, you are paying for engineering that your conditions will never stress. That is not a criticism of the reel. It is an excellent tool for what it was designed for. You are just not fishing in those conditions. So a large part of what you paid for is never going to matter. Match the gear to the actual environment, not the most extreme environment it could theoretically handle. Mistake number 7 is neglecting maintenance on equipment that genuinely needs it. This one is different from the others because it is something anglers do after the purchase, not during it. But it belongs on this list because it is one of the main reasons premium gear fails to deliver long-term value. A high-end reel with ceramic bearings, a quality carbon drag system, and machined aluminum components is built to perform for years. But if you drop it in the water, let it sit in a wet rod bag for 2 days, and never rinse or lube it, those components degrade faster than they should. Drag washers, bearings, and line rollers all need attention. A reel that costs $250 and lasts 2 seasons because of poor maintenance is not a bargain. A reel that costs $80 and gets cleaned and lubed after every few trips may outlast it. Premium gear earns its price when it is maintained. Without that maintenance, you are burning money. Mistake number 8 is buying premium gear based on what the pros fish rather than what your fishing situation actually needs. Tournament professionals fish under very specific conditions. They fish certain depths, certain cover types, certain forage, and certain water temperatures in highly competitive situations where small advantages matter. The gear they use is built and tuned for those conditions. When a professional angler endorses a rod for skipping light jigs under docks in clear water, that rod is legitimately excellent for that exact situation. But if your fishing is a weedy lake where you are mostly throwing medium-weight spinnerbaits and lipless crankbaits around grass flats, that highly specialized tool is not the right match for you. The pro's name on the grip and the tournament wins behind the endorsement do not change the fact that you are fishing a completely different type of water with completely different demands. Buy for your fishing, not for their fishing. Mistake number 9 is letting marketing claims about components substitute for actual performance evaluation. This is where the fishing industry earns a well-deserved amount of skepticism. Bearing counts are one of the most commonly misused numbers in reel marketing. You will see reels advertised with 12 or 15 bearings, presented as though more bearings automatically means a better reel. That is not how it works. A reel with 7 or 8 well-made, properly sealed bearings in the right locations can outperform a reel with 14 cheap bearings that are poorly protected and located in positions that do not meaningfully contribute to smoothness or durability. Same thing with rod modulus ratings. High modulus carbon does transmit vibration effectively, but it also tends to be more brittle under impact stress. A high modulus rod that gets knocked against a boat gunwale or pinched in a truck door is more vulnerable to a crack or a failure at the guide foot than a composite or lower modulus blank would be. Neither is universally better. Each is a trade-off. When you see impressive numbers in a product description, ask yourself what those numbers mean in the actual conditions you fish, not in the abstract performance category the marketing copy is designed to emphasize. Now, let me bring this together with a practical thought, because this is the part that actually changes how you shop. Premium gear delivers its value when 3 conditions are met. The first is that the angler understands the technique well enough to feel and use what the equipment offers. The second is that the gear is matched to the technique, the species, and the environment it was built for. The third is that every connected component, the reel, the line, the hooks, the maintenance routine, is at a level that does not create a weak point in the system. When all 3 of those conditions are met, quality gear is worth the price. When any one of them is missing, you are spending premium money for less than premium results. Think about the last piece of gear you bought. Not whether it felt good in your hand at the store, but whether you had a clear answer for all 3 of those conditions before you walked to the register. If you are honest with yourself, most anglers will recognize at least 1 or 2 of these mistakes in their own tackle room. I know I have seen all 9 of them in people's setups over the years. And I have had my own moments of buying a tool that made perfect sense on a shelf and less sense once it was actually in my hand on the water. Let me know in the comments which of these mistakes hit closest to home for you. I am genuinely curious whether it is the technique mismatch, the component pairing problem, or the marketing numbers issue, because those 3 tend to come up the most. And if you have bought something premium that genuinely exceeded your expectations, and you can tell me exactly why it worked, that is worth sharing too. Good fishing gear is not the gear with the highest price or the loudest marketing. It is the gear that fits the way you actually fish, survives the conditions you put it through, holds up to how you transport and store it, and connects properly to every other component in your setup. When all of those things line up, the price becomes easy to justify. When they do not, no amount of quality engineering at the factory level is going to save the purchase. Hit like, subscribe, and share this with someone who is about to drop serious money at the tackle shop without asking any of these questions first. I'm Jerry Davis, and I'll catch you in the next one.